Lisa and Seth Techel were the kind of couple that others admired. They seemed to embody small-town values, love, and ambition. Both grew up in Agency, Iowa, where the rural beauty of the community made for an idyllic setting to build a life. Lisa, known for her radiant smile and love of bowling, was a standout in her high school days. She didn't just bowl for fun. She was a state champion whose precision on the lanes mirrored her determined personality. Her achievements were a point of pride for her family, particularly her father, Todd Caldwell, a dedicated deputy in Wapello County's Sheriff's Department. Lisa's dream was to follow in his footsteps, a goal she actively pursued by working as a reserve deputy and later as a jailer in Washington County. Seth's background complemented Lisa's. The two met at the local bowling alley where they worked part-time as teenagers. Seth was struck by Lisa's competitive spirit and warm personality. As they dated through high school, their bond deepened, and Seth's family quickly welcomed Lisa as one of their own. By 2011, their shared dreams appeared to be taking shape. The couple tied the knot on October 15th, beginning a new chapter as husband and wife. They purchased a trailer on a scenic piece of land surrounded by lush trees and rolling fields, a home that symbolized their aspirations for a bright future. The news of Lisa's pregnancy added even more excitement. The couple planned to name their daughter Zoe Marie, a name they'd chosen together, reflecting their shared hopes for parenthood. Professionally, both were on solid paths. Lisa's career in law enforcement had already begun, and Seth was set to join her, working as a jailer in Wapello County under the same department as Lisa's father. Their lives seemed intertwined both personally and professionally, a testament to how deeply connected they were. Yet behind the smiles and plans for the future, cracks were forming. Both Lisa and Seth carried secrets that would eventually shatter the illusion of their perfect life. Lisa and Seth Techel's connection was rooted in shared experiences. The bowling alley was a staple of their local community, and a place Lisa approached the game with the same determination she brought to all aspects of her life. Seth often joked that she could outplay him any day, but her competitive streak only deepened his admiration for her. Their shared love for the outdoors further cemented their bond. Fishing trips became their mini getaways, where they could escape the stress of their budding careers. Lisa, a natural marksman, wasn't afraid to show off her sharpshooting skills, much to Seth's amusement and awe. These moments created a foundation of mutual respect and admiration, traits their families and friends often praised. "She was part of our family," his mother, Lorraine Ewing Techel, later recalled. Her warmth and friendliness made it easy for Seth's friends to welcome her into their circle. To them, Seth was lucky, not just to have Lisa's love, but to have someone who truly understood and supported his ambitions. Lisa's family was equally fond of Seth. Her father saw Seth as a natural fit for their tight-knit family. They shared similar values and a shared commitment to law enforcement, creating a camaraderie. Lisa's stepmother, Amy, adored the young man who treated Lisa with such care and respect. The couple's dynamic wasn't just built on shared hobbies or mutual admiration. They had a way of complementing each other. Seth often credited Lisa for pushing him to dream bigger, and Lisa felt Seth brought a calmness to her driven nature. To everyone looking in from the outside, they seemed like the perfect match, a couple destined to thrive both personally and professionally. But beneath the surface, their connection wasn't as unshakable as it appeared. Lisa Caldwell's upbringing was steeped in the values of hard work and perseverance. She had always been a high achiever. Her father was a respected figure in their community who instilled in Lisa a strong sense of duty and justice. Her stepmother, Amy, a compassionate and level-headed emergency room nurse, complemented Todd's stoic demeanor, creating a nurturing environment that shaped Lisa's ambitions. From a young age, Lisa admired her father's uniform and the respect it commanded, and she dreamed of one day following in his footsteps. Lisa was known for her determination and grit. She excelled at nearly everything she set her mind to, whether it was academics or athletics. Lisa wasn't one to rest on her laurels. Those who worked with her saw her as a rising star, disciplined, compassionate, and ready to make a difference. Seth Techel, by contrast, had a more relaxed approach to life. He grew up in the same rural environment as Lisa, surrounded by the rolling fields and close-knit community that typify small-town Iowa. His family described him as affable and easygoing, someone who was quick with a joke or a kind word. He, too, had ambitions in law enforcement and was preparing to begin a job as a jailer in Wapello County, where Lisa's father also worked. However, Seth's demeanor hid a side of him that was less ambitious than Lisa's laser-focused drive. He often leaned on her determination and took pride in her accomplishments, but friends noted that he seemed content to follow Lisa's lead, rather than forge his own path. While this dynamic worked for them early on, it may have sown the seeds of the tension that would later plague their relationship. Lisa's family saw the couple as a complementary team, with Lisa's decisiveness balancing Seth's laid-back charm. Yet there was an undercurrent of concern. While Seth appeared devoted, his more casual approach to life stood in stark contrast to Lisa's all-or-nothing attitude. Lisa, driven by her father's law enforcement career, carried a strong sense of justice and responsibility, while Seth seemed to be more influenced by his social circles, enjoying camaraderie and lighthearted moments. Together, they represented two halves of what appeared to be a whole, but as their relationship would reveal, appearances can often be deceiving. From the outside, Lisa and Seth Techel appeared to be the picture-perfect couple, newly married and expecting their first child. They seemed to embody youthful ambition and domestic happiness. But beneath the facade of their idyllic life, both were entangled in secret affairs that not only revealed cracks in their marriage, but also set the stage for eventual tragedy. Seth's infidelity was a carefully concealed betrayal, a secret carried on the back of a burner phone. While Lisa was busy preparing for the arrival of their daughter, Seth was engaging in a passionate affair with Rachel McFarland, a co-worker. The relationship began innocently enough, a few flirtatious texts exchanged during breaks, but it quickly escalated into something more. Rachel, who was also married, later revealed that Seth had painted a picture of a strained and loveless marriage, claiming he felt trapped in his life with Lisa. According to Rachel, Seth had even hinted at leaving Lisa, a promise that turned out to be as hollow as the vows he had taken just months earlier. Their affair was not just physical, it was emotional, with Seth often seeking solace in Rachel's company as a reprieve from the pressures of his home life. Despite Seth's assurances to Rachel, he never made moves to end his marriage. Instead, he led a double life, texting Rachel late at night while lying beside his pregnant wife. The affair fueled a growing resentment between Seth and Lisa, with subtle arguments and pointed silences becoming a regular part of their home. Lisa, however, had secrets of her own. Her affair with John Weatherly, a married co-worker at the jail, was perhaps more unexpected given her reputation as a dedicated and disciplined individual. But Lisa, like Seth, sought escape from the realities of their marriage, finding a connection in John that she felt was missing at home. Their relationship began during late-night shifts at the jail, where their shared experiences in law enforcement created an easy camaraderie. Over time, the bond deepened, evolving from casual conversations into stolen moments of intimacy. Friends and colleagues later described John as attentive and understanding, qualities that Lisa seemed to crave. Unlike Seth, Lisa was more discreet in her infidelity. She never spoke ill of Seth to her lover and never made promises about leaving her marriage. But those closest to her noticed subtle changes. Her increased time spent at work, a newfound sense of distance in her demeanor, and an avoidance of discussing her home life. The double betrayal created an undercurrent of tension in their relationship, one that neither could fully acknowledge. Seth's resentment toward Lisa grew, fed by the knowledge of her affair and his own guilt. Meanwhile, Lisa became increasingly withdrawn, perhaps sensing the widening emotional chasm between them. Their arguments grew more frequent, but never erupted into full-blown confrontations. Instead, their discontent simmered beneath the surface, unspoken but palpable. Lisa's focus shifted to preparing for their daughter's arrival, while Seth found solace in his ongoing relationship with Rachel. May 26, 2012 began as a serene spring morning in Agency, Iowa. The Techels, a young couple with a promising future, had just begun building their life together. Their small trailer home, nestled on a piece of lush, open land, symbolized the simple yet hopeful dream they shared for themselves and their unborn daughter, Zoe Marie. But by 5 a.m., that dream was shattered by the deafening blast of a shotgun. Inside the trailer, 23-year-old Lisa Techel lay lifeless in bed, her blood pooling beneath her. The shot had been fatal, cutting short not only her life, but also that of her unborn child. The horrific sound of the blast jolted Seth Techel, who claimed he had been in the shower when it happened. Emerging from the bathroom, Seth found his wife in a horrifying state. Grabbing his phone, he dialed 911 in a frenzy, his voice cracking with emotion.
I was shot! I was in a shot, getting ready for work, and I heard a gunshot. And I came running out, and she shot in the side and started.
Seth's panicked cries echoed over the line, a man seemingly lost in despair. Deputies were dispatched immediately, and with them came Todd Caldwell, Lisa's father. The deputy on scene, Marty Wonderlin, made the grim decision to call Caldwell directly, a choice that would haunt him. "In hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have done that," Wonderlin later admitted, regret heavy in his voice. "Now Todd has to live with those same images that I do." Todd and his wife Amy arrived, hoping beyond hope that they could help. Amy, an experienced emergency room nurse, instinctively rushed to her stepdaughter's side. But there was nothing they could do. Lisa was already gone. "I held her hand and I rubbed her belly," Amy later recalled through tears. "I just kept saying, 'My Lisa, my Lisa.'" The tragedy was unfathomable, leaving the family devastated and desperately seeking answers. Almost immediately, suspicion turned toward Brian Tate, the Techel's 56-year-old neighbor. Brian was a reclusive veteran who had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. His interactions with the Techels had been fraught with tension, escalating to outright hostility in the months leading up to the murder. The feud had begun with something seemingly trivial. A deer carcass Seth had dragged onto Brian's property. This petty act spiraled into a series of accusations, with Brian claiming the Techels were harassing him by throwing rocks and feces at his house. He reported them to the sheriff's department multiple times, his paranoia intensifying with each incident. In an attempt to defuse the situation, Todd personally visited Brian, hoping to appeal to reason. But the encounter left him uneasy. As they spoke, Todd noticed a shotgun lying within Brian's reach, a grim reminder of how quickly tensions could spiral out of control. "I was in bed," Brian said, insisting he had been asleep when the fatal shot was fired. His elderly mother, who lived with him, backed up his alibi, but his responses left investigators uneasy. His frustration over the alleged harassment by the Techels was palpable. "I was Mr. Nice Guy for a long time," he admitted. "It done me no good. People took advantage of me, so I'm taking a different approach to life right now." Despite his denials, Brian remained a key suspect for months. His volatile behavior and the bitter feud with the Techels made him an easy target for speculation, and his reputation as the unhinged neighbor only fueled the narrative. But as the investigation unfolded, detectives began to see cracks in the theory. Brian's alibi was corroborated, and there was no direct evidence linking him to the crime. As the investigation deepened, detectives began to uncover cracks in the seemingly idyllic Techel marriage. Seth Techel, the grieving husband, wasn't entirely forthcoming. Behind the facade of mourning lay a web of deceit and betrayal that turned the case on its head. Seth had been unfaithful to Lisa. His affair with Rachel wasn't just an innocent flirtation. Investigators discovered a burner phone Seth had used to exchange intimate messages with Rachel, a damning piece of evidence that raised questions about his true feelings toward Lisa. While Seth initially downplayed the relationship, claiming they had only kissed, the text messages revealed a different story. Seth had promised Rachel a future together, even hinting at leaving his wife, a promise he later admitted had been a lie. "I wasn't going to leave," Seth confessed during an interrogation. "I couldn't leave." But Seth wasn't the only one harboring secrets. Investigators unearthed another shocking twist. Lisa had also been unfaithful. She had been having an affair with a married coworker at the jail. This revelation painted a far more complex picture of their marriage. Though the details of Lisa's affair remained less publicized, the knowledge of both partners' infidelities suggested a relationship strained by deceit and betrayal. What had initially appeared to be the tragic murder of a devoted wife and mother-to-be now raised darker questions about motives and the nature of the Techels' marriage. For months, Brian Tate remained a looming figure in the investigation. To some, he was the obvious perpetrator, a disgruntled neighbor with a history of paranoid delusions and a motive forged from months of festering animosity. But to others, his involvement seemed too convenient, a way to shift focus from the complexities of Seth and Lisa Techel's lives. Brian maintained his innocence throughout, standing firm on his alibi. His elderly mother's testimony provided critical support, as she confirmed he had been asleep at the time of the murder. Investigators combed through his property, but found no physical evidence linking him to the crime. The gun that had killed Lisa came from the Techels' own home, further distancing Brian from suspicion. Despite this, the shadow of the accusation took a toll on Brian. His family and friends described a man deeply shaken by the events surrounding the murder. The negative publicity and relentless scrutiny weighed heavily on him, leading to a decline in his already fragile mental health. Brian's death, just months after Lisa's murder, added another layer of tragedy to the story. While his family attributed it to a broken heart, the truth of his passing left lingering questions. Did the pressure of being wrongfully suspected push him to the brink? Or was it simply the culmination of a life marked by struggle and isolation? For prosecutors, Brian's death presented a new challenge. Without his testimony, they lost a chance to definitively rule him out in court. For the defense, however, it was a boon. The absence of Brian allowed Seth's attorneys to continue using him as a scapegoat during the first 2 trials, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of jurors. The arrest of Seth Techel marked a pivotal moment in the investigation and sent shockwaves through the small Iowa community. Just days after Lisa's funeral, as her family and friends were still grappling with the unimaginable loss, law enforcement made their move. The young man who had initially been seen as a grieving husband now found himself handcuffed, facing accusations that would forever tarnish his reputation. The evidence against Seth had been quietly mounting in the background. Investigators had uncovered several troubling inconsistencies in his story, starting with his claim that an intruder, presumably their volatile neighbor Brian Tate, had entered the trailer and killed Lisa while Seth was in the shower. Yet the murder weapon, a shotgun that had been in the Techel's home, was discovered discarded in the woods nearby. How would an intruder have known to use a gun from their own house? And why would they take the time to hide it so close to the scene of the crime? The discovery of Seth's secret burner phone added another layer of intrigue. Authorities learned he had been texting Rachel McFarland, a co-worker, leading up to the murder. Although Seth initially minimized the relationship as mere flirtation, Rachel's account painted a more intimate picture. She claimed that Seth had expressed his unhappiness in the marriage and even hinted at leaving Lisa to be with her. This revelation cast a new shadow over Seth's narrative of being a devoted husband, blindsided by tragedy. On the day of his arrest, Seth was at the funeral home for Lisa's visitation, standing among grieving loved ones. Deputies chose that moment to approach him, cuffs in hand. It was a dramatic and calculated decision, a reflection of the seriousness of the charges he now faced. The handcuffs used in the arrest were Lisa's own, an emotional and symbolic gesture from the sheriff's office that underscored the gravity of their findings. The community was left divided. Some believed in Seth's innocence, unable to reconcile the image of the clean-cut, soft-spoken young man with the idea of him committing such a heinous crime. Others saw the evidence as damning, particularly the revelation of his infidelity and the circumstantial clues linking him to the murder weapon. As Seth was led away from the funeral home, his face bore the weight of the accusations. In that moment, his life as he had known it shattered, and the long road of legal battles, media scrutiny, and public judgment began. For Lisa's family, it was another crushing blow to endure, grieving a daughter while simultaneously grappling with the possibility that her husband, the father of her unborn child, might be the person responsible for her death. As investigators prepared their case against Seth Techel, a mosaic of evidence began to take shape, each piece pointing ominously toward his guilt. The murder weapon, a shotgun belonging to one of Seth's friends, had been a fixture in the couple's home, yet it was discovered discarded in the woods near the Techel's trailer. The proximity of the weapon to the crime scene raised red flags. It was unlikely an outsider, such as Brian Tate, would take the time to hide it so negligently. Even more damning was the timeline. Seth claimed he had been in the shower at the time of the shooting, yet the rapid sequence of events required for his story to hold up. Hearing the shot, running out, discovering Lisa and calling 911 seemed implausible under scrutiny. Forensic analysis of the crime scene added to the skepticism. The absence of defensive wounds or signs of a struggle suggested the shooter was someone Lisa knew and trusted, someone she wouldn't suspect would harm her. Adding to this was the burner phone Seth used to contact Rachel McFarland. This device, unearthed during the investigation, offered a window into Seth's state of mind before the murder. The text messages between Seth and Rachel revealed a man torn between his responsibilities as a husband and father-to-be, and his desires for a life unencumbered by those same obligations. Rachel later told investigators that Seth had spoken about leaving Lisa, creating a chilling motive. Could the murder have been a desperate attempt to escape the confines of his marriage while avoiding the scandal of divorce? Seth Techel's journey through the legal system was nothing short of a spectacle, capturing national attention and becoming a courtroom drama that spanned years. The first trial began with an air of certainty from the prosecution. They presented the timeline, the murder weapon, and the incriminating text to Rachel McFarland as a compelling case. The defense, however, pointed the finger squarely at Brian Tate, painting him as an unstable, paranoid schizophrenic with ample motive to lash out violently against his neighbors. The jury, however, couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. The same outcome plagued the second trial. The defense's strategy to focus on Tate and portray the investigation as sloppy resonated with enough jurors to deadlock the proceedings again. By the time of the third trial, Brian Tate had passed away, depriving the prosecution of the opportunity to fully debunk the defense's claims about his alleged involvement. This time, however, the prosecution leaned heavily on Seth's own words and actions. Rachel McFarland testified, recounting their secret relationship and Seth's promises to leave Lisa. The discovery of the shotgun near the trailer, and Seth's lack of a credible explanation for how it ended up there, sealed his fate. In 2014, Seth was convicted of first-degree murder and non-consensual termination of a human pregnancy. The verdict brought closure to Lisa's family, who had endured not only the loss of their daughter and granddaughter, but also years of uncertainty as the legal process dragged on. Yet the trial's conclusion left lingering questions for the community. How could a seemingly devoted husband and father-to-be carry out such an unthinkable act?